This conference will now be recorded.
Yes, basically we will focus on mainly data. Data is very precious and very important. So with respect to data only, we will take a kind of applications. Otherwise, it is not possible. With respect to data only, we will do some kind of applications. And the data should be some kind of formats. What are the main formats that we have? You have already seen so much of data, right? As a human being, we are generating so much of data as day by day, right? So out of those, how the data should be look like? Basically, the data should be categorized like three types, right? One is structured, semi-structured, and unstructured. We've already seen some of these in the yesterday session. Sarveer already told you that. So what are the examples that are comes under structured data? What are the examples, scenarios we have seen for structured data? Yeah, whatever the data that should follow some structure, those are all belongs to structured data like CSV, text. So it's not text, CSV, Excel, all these files, database, or that might have some kind of structure. Yeah, good. And what about unstructured data? What are the examples? Yeah, whatever the data that doesn't have, that doesn't follow any kind of proper structure, that are comes under unstructured data. Okay, that are examples is like audio, text, and video. These are all like to do some kind of applications with respect to this audio and text, we can use NLP. Okay, to do some kind of applications with respect to unstructured data, we can use NLP. And what else we have? What other some are type we have? Okay, and we have some other type like semi-structured data. So we have seen structured and unstructured, and we have seen some of the semi-structured data. That means it is a having some structure, and also it is a 50-50% data. So 50% of data should having some structure, and the rest of them it is not following some kind of structure. So we're already seen all this, and out of those, so we will focus on data types. So we will focus on data with some kind of types. So what are the data types that we have? Like integers and strings, we have also data types. With respect to the data types only, we will do applications in data science related problems. So what are the data types we have? Because those are very important, then only we will see, or then only we will pick up a model, or then only we will do some kind of analysis. Okay, so what are the data types that we have when it is a data science related projects or machine learning related projects or any applications apart from basic data types of Python? Yeah, we have a data types like numerical and also categorical. Yeah, basically we have numerical and categorical. When it is a numbers type, we can that comes under numerical data type. When it is a continuous data, then that will called as a categorical data. So categorical data must have some finite values, either zeros or ones or like that. Numerical data doesn't have a interval. It is a continuous data. Okay, so based on that type of data only, we will pick up a one best model, or we will pick up one best application to do some kind of applications. Okay, and so so you need to focus on these terminologies like numerical and categorical, because from today onwards, at the end of the machine learning projects, we will see all the related terminology which is similar to these two categories only, numerical and categorical. With respect to the two terminologies only, we will pick up or we will develop applications. Okay, try to focus on that. And also today we will see the data science life cycle. That means what are the steps that are going to be involved in data science, and and we will see how it is happen practically. So for that, all of you start your Jupyter servers and try to create a new folder for day 20. I think today, yeah, is that day 20 only? Yeah, I think so. day 20. So after the data science life cycle, we will see NumPy also, because the basic whole bunch of libraries which can helpful for the data science and machine learning is NumPy, Pandas, and Matplotlib. So after data science life cycle, we will discuss about NumPy. Okay. So for better understanding, for better representation, I'm just creating a folder with day 10 -NumPy. So try to create a folder. After starting a Jupyter server, try to create a day 20 folder and try to open it. And there you need to start your Jupyter new Python 3 notebook. Okay. So new Python 3 notebook. So try to rename this file name. So today we will see data science life cycle and NumPy, and make agenda. The agenda is data science life cycle, and next we will see data science related libraries. Data science libraries. Yeah, this is the agenda today. So convert this cell into Markdown. Now let's make a heading as data science life cycle. So in this data science life cycle, basically it follows a 6 steps to do all the data science related applications. It follows majorly is 6 steps. So those are the first step. It involves up to 5 to 6 steps. The first one is, so I'm going to open one image. With respect to that image, I'm going to explain. Here it is the image. The first step is, for data science life cycle, it will follow 6 to 7 steps. The first step is business understanding, and the second step is data preparation, and third step is data munging, and fourth step is model training, and fifth step is model evaluation, and sixth step is model deployment, and seventh step is model training. Okay, so out of this 7 steps, data analysis takes upon 1 to 3 steps only. The data analysis can be takes from the step 1 to step 3 only. The rest of 4 to 7, these are all belongs to machine learning. Okay, so these are all belongs to machine learning processing. But as a data scientist, you should know how all the things can be happen, because all these things are correlated to one to another. Correlated. That's why basically as a data science, it can take say 6 to 7 steps. In the data analysis, we can follow like 1 to 3 steps only, like business understanding, data preparation, data munging. But out of those also, we have some other internal steps going to be happen. So we will see what are those also. So the first step is business understanding. Let's make a heading here also. The first step is business understanding, and the second step is data preparation. And the next step is data munging, or also can called as data wrangling. And then fourth step is model training and model evaluation, model training. And the fifth step is model evaluation. And the sixth step is model deployment, and the seventh step is model tracking. So these are all the data science life cycle steps. It basically involves up to 6 to 7 steps. So the first step is business understanding. Business understanding. That means as a data scientist, you should know all these steps. The first step is business understanding. That means here, you are working as a data scientist means you should know how the business perspective is. That means one client should give a project to you. So based on that client agenda, based on that client application, based on the client requirement, you should know you have to develop a application, right? Based on the client requirement, you should develop a application. So the first step means you need to know what is the client application, what is the client requirement. So that is comes under business understanding. Okay, so you should know what are the requirement from the client. That is comes under business understanding. So with respect to that client requirement only, you have to analyze that what data you should take. Okay, you have to analyze that what data or which data you need to take to do that to develop that application. Okay, that is comes under business understanding. And the second step is data preparation. After understanding the problem statement from the client, you should know or you have to collect the data. You have to collect the data. So where you need to collect the data and what are the resources that you have to collect the data? Let me know in the chat box. Just analyze yourself, you as a data analyst. So when you as working as a data analyst, the second step is you need to collect the data or you need to prepare the data based on the client requirement. So let's take one example, like the client requirement means I have a client like bank. One bank give me a requirement like client will ask me like to check that credit card is frauded or not. Okay, so I based on the transactions of the user, I need to tell them, I need to tell the client that credit card is frauded or not. So in that scenario, you need to understand what are the data should be taken. Which data do you need to take it? So where do you get that data? If you have a problem statement like to check the credit card is frauded or not based on the client application, you need to take the data. And where do you get the data? Let me know in the chat box, all of you. Because the second step is data preparation. So without data, we don't do anything, right? So the major step is data collection or data preparation. Where do you get the data? When it is a client of bank, you need to get the data from where or how? Yeah, I got two responses. The data should be get from bank or some kind of account statement or some form of files. Yeah, and what else we have? Where do you get the data? Just think about it and let me know. Yeah, some of the members agree. Database. Okay. Basically, based on the client, you need to represent or you need to develop application, right? So in that case, the client only will gives you the data. Okay, from the client only, you will get the data. The client may be bank. So because here we are assuming that it is a bank client. So the bank only will gives you the data. So that data may be like the data should be from database. Basically, every organization or every sector that can follows a kind of database, right? Everything is in the form of cloud only. So they will provide you data from database or else in the form of transaction or else in the form of files. Okay, so that and you need to observe that the data should not be as less. It may be a kind of millions of transactions can be happen, right? So not only for a single client, they will represent for every customer. So they will develop an application and they need to find out credit card fraud detection for every customer from their bank. In that case, the data may be huge, some billions of data should be there. Okay, so likewise in the second step we will collect the data from either it is a client, either it is a database, either it is a Kaggle, or we have so many resources to collect the data. So based on that resources, we will collect the data. That is the second step. And the data, the next step is data mangling or data wrangling. That means here we need to convert that huge data into suitable data. That means we will convert the data from a raw format to user understanding format. That means when you collect the data in the second step, that may be a huge data and that is in the form of raw. Okay, that means it is not in a correct format. In that situation, we need to do some kind of data wrangling. Data wrangling means we will convert that one raw format of data into user understanding format, and also we will check, we will do some kind of analysis there. Here it is nothing but to check is there any kind of null values or is there any kind of missing values, all the things. That means when you have a billions of data, we will take a 500 thousands of data only out of the billions of data, because when you have a huge data, there may be a chances to getting overfitting or the model, how can I tell you? So when you have a huge data, that may be causes to some kind of errors, and that is not a kind of proper output generation when you have a huge data. In that case, out of the billions and the thousands of data, we will take a few data which will helpful to get the application as early as possible. That means we don't neglect all the data. We will select a best data that can be called as in a future selection or feature engineering. And out of this, after this also we can do some kind of, for data wrangling we can do some kind of feature selection. That means out of the 1,000 columns, we will select a best features. We will select a best columns data, best data. So to predict the output, that comes under the feature selection. And also uh, we will do some kind of EDA tools, exploratory data analysis. We will do some kind of exploratory data analysis in the data wrangling also. So this is also a step. Here it takes EDA tools. EDA means exploratory data analysis. As a data scientist, you should focus on data only. Okay, so how much changes do you want to changing? You can change it with the help of data only. So those all things can be happen in the exploratory data analysis. That means when you have a huge data and we need to convert a less data, that means we need to select a some data. With that data only we will predict the output, means that comes under feature selection. And also we have some other techniques to do all this data wrangling, like EDA tools. EDA tools means we will convert a target data into a kind of labels. Okay, with respect to that labels only, we will understand the target easily. So those are all comes under the third step. That means we will convert one data, raw format of data, into another format by selecting a best features and also do some kind of data analysis. Okay, so basically these three steps will involve in data analysis: taking the data and prepare the data, and selecting the best features and do some kind of data analysis. All the steps are comes under data analysis. And the rest of 4 to 7 steps is belongs to machine learning steps. That means after selecting the data, we are done up to taking the data and selecting the best features and defining the inputs and outputs. That means we will, when you take the data wrangling, up to the data wrangling, we will select the best features to predict the credit card is frauded or not. So the target is credit card is frauded or not. That means we have target like yes or no. If it is yes, means the credit card is frauded. If it is no, means the credit card is not frauded. So to find out that yes or no, we need to select a inputs, right? With respect to that inputs only, we will figure out that either credit card is frauded or not. So just you assume yourself what are the things that can helpful to find out that credit card is frauded or not. Let me know in the chat box what you think. What are the things that can helpful to find out that credit card is frauded or not? Let me know in the chat box. Think about it and let me know. A range, that means range means what exactly it means? How many times that credit card is used, that it is, how frequently that yeah, okay. Recent transaction history, based on the transaction history. And we will select a features to find out that credit card transaction frauded or not. That means transaction history is also one of the aspect that also taken as a one of the best feature. And also we can select a features like the location. Based on the location also we will select, we will find out that if the user or if the customer is belongs to India, but the credit card is transaction can be happened in some kind of other countries, that may be a kind of suspicious, right? So like that also we will select the, we will find out the credit card fraud. And also amount, every time the customer can only draw say lakhs of amount only. And if the credit card is transacts the history is more than lakhs means, the bank can assumes that it can be a kind of fraud detection. So every time those are all the things, if you think those are all things, maybe features to find out that credit card is fraud. So up to now we are taking that inputs. That means we are selecting one kind of inputs like features like transaction history, transaction place, transaction amount, and all these are inputs. And our output should be credit card is frauded or not. We need to figure out. So that means we are taking the input and we have a output. And with respect to that, we need to tell them that in the future, based on the future, based on all these aspects, we are going to train the model. We will pick up one machine, we will take one mission to find out this transaction is frauded or not. So to do that, we will take one mission and we will try to teach them all the things like if the user is like do a transaction with the aspects of these, you need to tell them that it is a fraud, and you need to tell them that it is not a fraud. So based on that, we are going to teach a mission to do to find out that credit card is fraud or not. So that in to training that machine, that can take in the step of model training. Okay, with the help of our aspects, we are going to train a machine. So that is takes in the step of 4. That is comes under model training. Okay, and the next step is, so we are training the model correctly, so that means we are training a model with respect to our aspects, but after that we need to test the model, right? So other than testing, we don't do conclusion like the machine can be work properly. That means after training we need to test anything, like as a student after training we need to conduct an exam, so that only the teacher or the trainer or any teaching can be uh, evaluated properly. So for evaluating we need to conduct a test. Likewise, after training the machine with our aspects, we need to test that model. That testing can be happen in the model evaluation. Okay, that testing can be happen in the model evaluation. And after evaluation, so what we need to so the agenda should be why we are using a machine to find out credit card fraud detection means every time the user cannot be figured out. Every time as a human being we are not going to find out that credit card is fraud or not. So for reducing that human complexity, we are taking a machines and we are training a data to that machines, and we are going to find out is that credit card is fraud or in the future. In the future, without human interruption, the machine can be tells to you. So for that only we will use machine learning. So likewise, after machine can be evaluated successfully based on our training, so we need to deploy that model. That means we need to submit our application, we need to submit our project to bank, because we have a requirement from the client bank. So that after testing all the things, if it is working properly, then we need to submit that project to our client. Like here the client is bank, so we need to submit our project to client. So how they going to be deployments? Here for deployment we have some kind of tools like, for deployment they can use some kind of Hadoop technologies. So every client should have some kind of database, right? So they will ask you to deploy that model into our website, so that only they will directly evaluate that customer services. So for deployment in the real time, as a student point of view, we have AWS and also IBM Aston Studio and also Microsoft Azure. So we have so many tools to deployment. After successfully evaluating your model, if the model is work properly, then you need to deploy. That means you need to dump your model into a kind of platform. That platforms may be AWS, IBM Aston Studio, and also Microsoft Azure. So many tools are there. So after deployment, you need to track the model at every time, because as a human there may be a chances to getting a errors, or it is not maybe the model should not be properly work. Sometimes assume that. Okay, if it is not working means we need to track the model every time. Whenever you find any kind of complexities or any kind of errors, we need to figure out, right? So for that we need to track our model. So this is not a mandatory, but basically the data science steps is up to 1 to 6 only. 1 to 6 only. This model tracking is not mandatory, but as a best programmer or as a best customer, you need to develop a machine learning or data science projects means it's up to you to track the model after deployment. Okay, so these are all the steps that are involved in data science, and these are very important. Okay, am I clear, students? The data science steps, let me know in the chat box. In the real-time scenario also, this works same. As a data scientist, you should follow all the 6 steps. Yeah, okay. And also we have some other step also. Yeah, here if you see the image, so if the model is not working properly, that means when you track the model, whenever you find errors, when you track the model means you need to train the model again because it is not working properly. In that cases, what should you do? You need to train your model again. That means how can you train means again you need to take some other extra data, because at the initial step after the billions of the data we can take thousands of data, right? So if the model is not working properly for that 1,000 data means you need to take extra data. So where do you get that means again after the 7th step you need to go back to the second step. That means you need to repeat all the steps from 2 to 7. If the model not working properly means you need to repeat all the steps from 2nd step to 6th step again. This is a life cycle. It is a cycle format. That's why if the model not working properly means you need to train the model again from the 2nd step, and you need to do some kind of exploratory data analysis and do some kind of feature selection and data wrangling. And also you need to train the model again, and you need to evaluate it, and you need to deploy the model in any kind of database. So this is the steps that going to be happen. And now we have some other image also. Yeah, so now you can see the internal steps that going to be happen here. So the internal steps. So initially data is important, because with respect to the data only we will start the data, any kind of applications that are belongs to data science or ML, right? So the data is initial step, and after that data preparation. So for data, in the data preparation we are already seen for data preparation that we need to take the data either kind of sources like client resources as well as Google or any kind of cloud. So in the data preparation only, it will take all these steps like data manipulation, data blending, missing values handling. That means when you take the data, if they find any kind of missing values, you need to handle with that. And also feature generation. That means how to generate a new features. And out of the features, how to select the best features. And also dimensionality reduction. That means when you have a huge data, while taking the data, you need to reduce that dimensionality. Dimensionality means the size of the data. So to reduce that dimensionality, so that is also one of the aspect in data preparation. And also feature selection, we're already seen that out of the huge data we will select the best features. So best features means best inputs that will predict the output. And also outlier removal, that means when you have outliers, so if you want to remove it, how can you handle it? Those are all comes under data preparation aspects. And also partitioning, that means how to segregate the data from inputs to output. So these are all the data preparation steps. And also model training. So model training means we have so many different type of ML models, machine learning models. So out of the machine learning models, you can take one best model based on your application. So here you can see some kind of models like ensemble models, model selection, model factory, existing models. These are all the inbuilt ML models. Out of this, we can select any one of those. And model optimization, that means if the model is not working properly means you need to optimize. So the output should be in the format of optimized view, then only the client should take it. So to optimize that, we need to do some kind of parameter tuning, and also parameter optimization and regularization, model size, and iterations. We can do all the iterations. So parameter tuning means every model should have some kind of parameters. So if you want to get a best accuracy or if you want to perform your model well, you need to do some kind of parameters tunings. Okay, and also model evaluation. That means when it comes to model evaluation, how the model should be evaluated means like accuracy or ROC curve or performance measures. These are all the evaluation metrics. You will get to know more about this when ML comes. From these two model evaluation, you will observe when it ML comes, and finally deployment. So when model evaluation, when it comes to model evaluation, if the model is not performed well, you need to repeat all the steps again. That's why you can observe there is arrays again that can start from data preparation. Okay, we're already seen all this, and we have some other image also. So here you can observe the steps that can follow. That here is also the steps are same, but here if you see, the data engineers can take steps from collection to cleaning only. Data collection and data cleaning can be happen by data engineers. Okay, as a data engineer, you should collect the data, and also you need to clean the data. Without you need to pass the data to the data analyst by cleaning the data. Okay, the job of data analyst is cleaning the data and do some kind of exploratory data analysis, like EDA tools. We have so many EDA tools. We will let you know when the topic comes. And coming to machine learning engineer, the job of machine learning engineer is model building. That means the machine learning engineer can get the data from data engineer and also data analyst. So after getting the data from these two, the machine learning engineer can take a model and build a model and model deployment. These two can be happen by machine learning engineer. And when it comes to data scientist, it's your job to do all these things. Okay, it is your job to do all these things: collecting, cleaning, exploratory, model building, model deployment, when you are a data scientist. Okay, am I clear, students, all of you? Up to this, let me know how feature generation differs from feature selection. Yeah, feature selection means we will select a feature which we have already. That means we will select a feature out of the inbuilt features. Feature generation means we are going to generate a new feature with the help of inbuilt features. That is the difference. Feature generation means we will generate a new feature with the uses of inbuilt feature. That is feature generation. Feature selection means we will select a best feature out of the inbuilt features. And what about rest of them? Am I clear up to this? How the data science life cycle and what are the jobs and responsibilities of data scientist, data engineer, and machine learning engineer, and the steps that can happen. Okay. Okay, thank you all. Now let's come to our class. So if you want to do all these steps, you should know the data science supported libraries. Okay, the data science supported libraries, those are, so after mentioning the data science life cycle, so we will discuss data science, because we are seeing the data science life cycle. So for that, in the first step, the data is important. So we need to take the data, any kind of resource, and we will do some kind of preparation. Out of the preparation, we will see data mangling and EDA, all those things. So for that, you should know what are the supporting tools or what are the supporting libraries that can helpful to do all this data preparation, data wrangling, all these things. So for that, you should know data science basic libraries that can involve in Python. Let's make a heading: data science libraries. So the basic data science libraries that can we are using up to the end of machine learning is: the first one NumPy, and the second one Pandas, and the next one Matplotlib, and next one is Seaborn, and next one we have also sklearn, but that is basically a machine learning library. So but most of data science libraries are NumPy, Pandas, and Matplotlib and Seaborn. Convert this cell into markdown. Okay, so these are all the basic libraries we can use for data science. The first one is NumPy. Yeah, sklearn is basically it is a machine learning related library. But for data analysis, we can use mostly like these three. Yes, SciPy also, but we are not using that in this workshop. And mostly we can use this only. For data visualization, we can use Tableau, all those things. But in this workshop, we will, for data visualization, we can use Matplotlib and Seaborn. Okay. So data science, instead of typing these data science libraries, let's make it as data analysis libraries. When it comes to data science libraries means these all can comes SciPy, sklearn, all those things. When it is data analysis means these three or these four can take place mostly. The first one is NumPy. So from today onwards, we will see one by one all these libraries, and we will continue with the data analysis, all those things. After the data analysis, we will see how the machine learning can take place. Okay, the first one is NumPy. Okay, some of the members may also know what is NumPy, and they are also aware about programming knowledge, right? So if you already know what is NumPy, let me know in the chat box, all of you. If you don't know about that, no problem. I'm going to explain you. Don't worry. Yeah. So NumPy means it is a Python library. Basically, it called as a NumPy stands for numerical Python. NumPy stands for numerical Python. Developed in 2005 by Travis Oliphant. Developed in 2005 by Travis Oliphant. So NumPy stands for numerical Python. That means when you have when you want to do some kind of applications like statistical applications, numerical applications, we can use this NumPy because it is stands for numerical Python. And we have this is simply like array representation. When you want to define your data in the format of arrays, you can use numerical Python or NumPy. Okay, so we are already seen, we already know how to represent arrays in Python. How to represent arrays in Python? Which one can helpful for that? Yeah, we're already seen to define arrays in Python. That is a data structure that is list. So with the help of list, we can define arrays. But why we are using NumPy? If you have already a list like a arrays format, why we are using NumPy? Means NumPy is a 50 times faster than list because list can take a different data types. Like it can take say either integers and also strings, any data type. It can take separated by commas, and the syntax is square bracket. And when you have a different data types to define that list, it can take say time to accessing it. But when it comes to NumPy, it have only same data types so that we can easily accessing, so that it can take less memory to accessing it. That's why NumPy is 50 times faster than list. Okay, why we are using list? Why you are using NumPy when you have a list means list is as slower than NumPy, and NumPy is 50 times faster than list. Why means memory allocation and also speed of the operation is faster because list can take multiple data to define it when you want, as well as NumPy also can supports different data, but it can take for better understanding we can take a same data type only to define arrays. In that case, to accessing our speed of the data should be faster. That's why NumPy is faster. And with this NumPy we can create a arrays. We will create arrays. Those are maybe we will create arrays. So arrays may be zero dimension array, single dimension array and two dimensional arrays. And also three-dimensional array. So we will and also we can simply call this, instead of three dimension, we can call multi-dimensional array. Okay, so with this NumPy we can create arrays like zero dimension and also single dimension and two dimension and also multi-dimension. So with the help of these arrays we can create all the dimensions of array. Okay, we are telling that here the dimension. So what is dimension? What is dimension? Can anyone know? Because we are using NumPy array to create a multi-dimensional arrays. So what is dimension? Yeah, dimension is nothing but shape of the data or shape of the array. So with the help of NumPy, we can create n number of shape of data. So the shape may be a size. With respect to size only, we will generate elements. With respect to elements only, we will call that as a rows and columns. Okay. So this basically this NumPy array can helpful to do some kind of statistical functions like linear algebra, Fourier transforms, and also metrics. We will use this NumPy array library for developing linear algebra applications and also Fourier transforms. And also we will see this with the help of metrics. Okay, convert this cell into Markdown. Okay, so in data analysis, we will take the first library is NumPy. Why we are using NumPy means we are getting a data from a environment. We are getting a data environment like either it is a hospitals or clients or mobilization areas or Google, any other sources. So that data should not be in a proper format. That means we are getting a huge data and that data should not follow a kind of structure. And it is a huge data. It can follows a format of raw. It is in the format of raw. So when you have a raw format of data, we need to convert or we need to set the data in the particular format. We need to assign a particular dimension to that data. Okay, so to make the data in the particular dimension, we can use NumPy to convert it in a specific format, and also we will do some kind of statistical functions. With the help of NumPy, we will do some kind of statistical functions. So for that we can use the NumPy. Okay, so let's see how to use this NumPy in your programming point of view. For that you need to install your NumPy. Whenever you use Anaconda for NumPy, so whenever you use Anaconda environment to do applications with respect to NumPy or some other libraries, these NumPy and all the rest of libraries, should already installed in your respected Jupyter. Why? Because so that Anaconda should also have inbuilt libraries. You don't need to install it manually. But when you are using Spider or PyCharm or IDEs, you need to install it in your own way, like from Python command prompt or command prompt, any other command prompt. So for that, you need to know how to install the NumPy library if you don't have in your system. Okay, if it is not there in your system, you need to install it. But first, let's check is it is installed or not. To check any kind of module or method or library, you need to use import keyword. After that, you can specify that name of the library. If I use import NumPy, see in my system the NumPy is already installed. That's why I'm not raising any error. So if you are for this importation of NumPy also, NumPy should not raises any error from your end. That's okay. If you have any doubts or if it is raises any kind of error while you use import NumPy, let me know in the chat box. When you import the NumPy, if you have any errors, if it is raise any errors, let me know in the chat box, all of you. If you don't get any errors while installing or while importing, that's fine. You can respond me like completed or no error. Okay, that's fine. So when you have some other IDs, to do this NumPy, you need to know the command to install it. The command is, you can note that command here itself. So it is related to Python package. Whenever you want a packages to install with respect to Python, you can use pip. Okay, pip space install space NumPy. Okay, so pip space install space NumPy and run it. So whenever you use this pip space install space NumPy command, it will install the NumPy packages from respected browser. It will install the NumPy packages from respected browsers. So that means it will take internet connectivity to run this cell. Otherwise, it will run say error. It will raises an error. Okay. Keep in your mind, when you use pip space install space NumPy command, it will collect the packages from Google or any kind of respected browser. So for that, you need to connect your system to a good internet connectivity. Yeah, why pip means this NumPy is a package that belongs to Python. This NumPy library is in the Python. That's why we need to use pip command. So whatever the packages that you don't have and that are belongs to Python, you can use pip command to install it. Okay, now let's move ahead. So so when you use this command, it will if you don't have NumPy in your system, it will collect the packages and it will going to be successfully installed it in your system. But my side, the requirement is already there. That's why it will raises me like requirement is already satisfied. Okay, now I need to use it directly because it is already installed. Now I'm going to import it again. So in the IT sector format, you need to assign this NumPy into one kind of variable. With respect to that variable only, we can use it. Okay, so because every time it is a huge time taken process when you use NumPy, so that we can assign a variable to access that library from NumPy. Import NumPy as NP, so that every time this NumPy should called with the help of NP variable. It is a variable. You can use any other variable to represent this NumPy. It is not mandatory, but most of them will use NP is a variable to point out this NumPy module. Okay, run it. Now, if you want to know which version of NumPy you have installed, you can use np.__ version, because this np stands for NumPy. np.__ version. Again, double_. Now, when you pass np.version and version, it will gives you the installed respected version. Now, in this np.version, what is this np stands and what it point out? Let me know in chat box, all of you. Yeah, it will point out NumPy, because in the previous line we are assigning this np variable to NumPy module. So instead of using NumPy, you can directly use np. Okay, if you are getting some other version, that's not a problem, because every time I am updating my Anaconda packages, so that's why I'm getting the version is 1.19. Some might get 1.18 also. That's not an issue. Okay. So basically this numpy we can use for to creating a n-dimensional array or multiple arrays, right? So now let's see how to create an array with the help of this numpy. So let's make a heading, creating arrays. Okay, creating arrays. So for creating arrays with the help of numpy, we have a one method. With the help of that one method, we can create an arrays. Okay. Okay. So for creating arrays, we have one method. So that is array. So for that you need to know the let's import numpy as np, and then I'm going to assign one variable to create that to store that created array. So that is here I'm just taking x equals to np dot array. So this numpy dot array, this array method will helpful to create an array, and this array will takes the dimension or it will takes the elements. Okay, so here if I pass a kind of 23 and if I print x, on which dimension of that x having. Before running the cell, let me know if I pass np dot array, it will create an array with the element of 23. So it will generate an array with the element of 23 and it will print it. When you print x, it will print it. But now you should tell me the dimension of that x having. Is that one dimension or two dimension? Yeah, most of them will tells me that it is in a one dimension. How you said that it is in a one dimension? If you have one element in this array, it is belongs to one dimension. You think, did you think like that? Then how you tell that it is in a one dimension array? Row and column. So I have only single row and single column. That's why you are telling that it is in a single dimension. Let's see. So instead of going this all these things, let's see we have an inbuilt method to know the dimension of that array. So that is x dot np dot. Let's make a comment here. Check the dimension. Check the dimension. To checking the dimension, we have numpy dot ndim. Ndim is a method, and there you need to pass the array. So if I pass like this, it will tells the dimension of this x array having. Now you will get it is in a zero dimension array. What it is? It is in a zero dimension array. That means if you want to create an array means you can pass the elements in the brackets along with the parenthesis. And here I am not passing any kind of bracket, square bracket. That means it is in a zero dimension array. Okay, now let's see creating the two dimension array. So for that I'm just giving the variable as x1. Let's create a single dimension array with x1 variable np dot array of. Now you can pass a number of variables, number of elements that you have. I'm passing 12, 23, 4, 5, 6. It's up to you the number of elements. I'm just printing this x1 and I'm going to print the dimension also, np dot ndim of x1. Now it will tells you that it is in a one dimension. That means it is having single row. It is having single row. Okay. So it is in a single dimension array, one dimension array. Now I think you got clarity between zero dimension and one dimension. Okay, in the zero dimension, we are not mentioning any kind of square brackets. That means when you pass the elements in the parenthesis means those all elements should be like in the format of zero dimension. Single dimension means you can mention one square bracket. That means the elements in between that square bracket is belongs to single dimension array. Guys, are you clear up to this? Okay. Now let's create a two-dimension array. So 2D array. So 2D array means inside a single dimension array, we have again one dimension array. 2D array means inside a single dimension array, again we have a single dimension array. Totally, it can called as a two-dimension array. So for that, we need to take one another variable x2. Here I'm just taking variable x2. np dot array is a method to create an array. Now you can mention. So inside a single dimension array, again I have a single dimension array. Okay, inside a single dimension array, I have a single dimension array. This can be called as a two-dimension array. Okay, so inside the single dimension array, you have again one dimension array. There you can mention the elements that you have. How many you want to pass it, you can pass it. If I pass 1, 2, 3, and finally I'm going to print this x2, and I'm going to print the dimension also. Print np dot ndim of x2. Now you can see it is in a two-dimension array. That means inside a one big single dimension array, again I have one single dimension array. Totally it will form two-dimension array. And if you want to pass more elements, you can pass it by separating comma. Like I want to pass more elements, then you can mention, and size of the element should be same at any point. Now you can see it will generate a list of elements because here the size of elements in the first dimension is 1, 2, 3. In the second dimension, I have elements of 4. That's why it will generate an elements like a list. So better to pass same length of elements. Now you can see it will generate a two-dimension array. That means inside a single dimension, inside a single big dimension array, again we have single dimension array. So you can pass number of elements by separating comma like this. Okay, like this you can create a two-dimension array. And we have some other methods, that is to check the dimension. We have already seen ndim method to check the number of elements, to get the number of elements. So how many elements this x2 array having? How many elements this x2 array having? Let me know in the chat box. Guys, can you hear me? Yeah, I'm asking a question, that is I have a x2 array like this, and how many elements does this x2 array have? So elements is nothing but inside the data, like 1, 2, 3, 1, 3, 4. This can be called as an elements. Totally, I have 6 elements inside this x2 array, and this 2 is dimension. So this 2 is belongs to dimension, not elements. Okay, don't confuse about that. If you want to make it as simple, you can write a print statement like dimension of x2. Okay, so here if you see, to get the number of elements in the x2, you can use one method like x2 dot size. Int object is not callable. That means you need to pass np dot size of x2. Yeah, you need to pass to check the number of elements in the x2 array. you can use np dot size of x2. This size will gives you the number of elements in that particular array. Okay, and if you want to know the number of rows and columns, so that means if you consider this x2 array, how many rows and how many columns that have? Let me know in the chat box. Yeah, totally this x2 array is having 2 rows and 3 columns. Okay, 2 rows. The first row is 1, 2, 3, and the second row is 1, 3, 4. And totally 3 columns. The first column is 1, 1, and second column is 2, 3, and third column is 3, 4. That means if you want to get the number of rows and number of columns, we have one another method in NumPy, that is np dot shape, x2 dot shape. Okay, np dot shape of x2. Okay, so it will gives you the number of rows as first element, and the second element denotes that number of columns. Okay, this shape will gives you the number of rows and columns. Okay, now you can observe the first element will point out the number of rows and the second element will point out the number of columns. Okay, am I clear up to this, all of you? Creating an arrays and find out the shape, dimension and elements. What about rest of them? Can you able to follow, or do you want to decrease my speed? Okay, good. Now let's see creating a three-dimension array, 3D array. So for 3D array means inside the single one big single dimension array, inside the one big single dimension array, we have two dimension arrays. Okay, inside the single dimension array, we have again two dimension arrays like this. That means this first bracket will denote that single dimension array, and inside the single dimension arrays again we have two dimension array. Okay, the three dimension array means inside the single big dimension array we have again two dimension arrays. So with respect to the syntax only, we're going to represent it. Inside in between this you can mention the number of elements that you want. You can separate it by comma. So for this I'm just taking one variable to create it. Import numpy as np, and I'm just taking x3 as my variable to creating three dimension array. X3 equals to np dot array of, you can mention three dimension array. So when you want to create a three dimension array, you need to mention one big array. Inside this you need to mention two dimension arrays. So two dimension arrays means you need to pass again two brackets inside the single bracket. Okay, inside this you can mention the number of elements that you want. Okay, I'm just mentioning 1, 2, 3. And if you have more elements inside this, you can mention again square bracket. You can mention again elements, and the length of elements should be same, otherwise it will generate some kind of list format elements. Now I'm going to print this x3, and if you want to know the dimension, you can give ndim np dot ndim of x3. And if you want to know the elements of x3, you can pass np dot size of x3. Again, if you want to know the shape of data, that means number of rows and number of columns, shape of x3, np dot shape of x3. See, the dimension of x3 is 3 dimension, and the number of elements inside this x3 is 9, and the shape of x3 is, now you can observe the shape of x3. So what it points out, so when you observe this single dimension and 2 dimension, now you can observe this 3 dimension, and this 3 dimension will tells you that the shape of x3 is 1 comma 3 comma 3. What you can assume when you see this 1 comma 3 comma 3, this 1 will point out what, and this 3 point out what, and this 3 point out what. If you observe this syntax like 3-dimension array representation, inside the single dimension array, we have again 2-dimension arrays in between that. If you understand this 3 brackets, you can understand this shape of array also. Yeah, when it is a 3-dimension array, you can assume like we can see 3-dimensional objects like cube. When you see this cube, one axis cannot be visible to you. Either we can see either x and y or y and z. We cannot see a one axis. Likewise, if you see here the 3-dimension array, when you find out the shape of this x3, we will get 1 comma 3 comma 3. This 3 and 3 is nothing but number of rows and number of columns. Here we have totally 3 rows and 3 columns. Okay, how many rows and how many columns we have? Totally 3 rows and 3 columns. And what it is this 1 stands for? This 1 stands for this 3-dimension axis. 3-dimension axis means inside the single dimension array we have 2-dimension arrays. So for representing this single dimension, it can be a shape of 1. First axis is 1. Defaultly this first axis is 1 because it is a 3-dimension array. Okay, because a 3-dimension array is nothing but inside the single dimension array we have again 2-dimension arrays. So this 2-dimension arrays is nothing but 3 by 3 rows and 3 columns, and this 1 is nothing but we have totally single dimension array. This single dimension array will point out the shape like 1. Okay, am I clear to all the shape of 3-dimension array? Okay, so somebody asked me to explain once. That means when it is 3-dimension array means inside the single dimension array we have again 2-dimension arrays. So that's why we have totally 3 brackets here. When it is representing a 3-dimension array, we have totally 3 brackets. That means the first bracket represents that inside we have a single dimension array. This first bracket is single dimension array. These two brackets represents the two dimension arrays. That means inside a single dimension array we have again two dimension arrays. So that's why we are getting, when you find out the shape of x3, we are getting three axes, x, y, z. This first axis represents single dimension array. And this single dimension arrays, again we have two dimension arrays. Those are 3 by 3 matrix, 3 rows and 3 columns. That's why this single dimension can only represents like 1, and this two dimension arrays represents like 3 by 3 matrix. That's why we are getting 3 rows and 3 columns as my shape. Okay, now it's clear to all. Okay. Okay, now we will see we have some other methods to create an arrays. That is, the first method is methods to create arrays. So we have different methods to create an arrays inside the NumPy. So the first method is np dot the first method zeros, and next method is ones. Next method is linspace. Linspace, and next method is log space, and next method is arrange. And next, what you have? Yeah, up to now we have only these methods. If I get anything, I will tell you. Okay, so we have different methods to create an array: zeros, ones, linspace, log space, arrange. So let's see one by one. So the first method, zeros. So if you want to create an array with only zeros, you can mention this zeros method. So let's see np dot zeros of. So zeros of, you can mention the zeros will take you, this zeros method will takes you the shape of array. So on which dimension you want to generate a zeros arrays, array with zeros. That means it will takes the dimension. I am passing 2 comma 3. So what it means, if I pass 2 comma 3 means it will generate 2 rows and 3 columns array with zeros only. Okay, it will generate an array with 2 rows and 3 columns with having zeros only. Now let's see. So for that, let's assign a variable here. I'm just taking a0 is variable to store it. If I print a0, cannot interpret 3 as data type. Okay, it will generate array. It will generate the number of elements only. With respect to this number of elements, you can reshape your array. When you use zeros and ones, it will generate only single dimension array. And you can observe here the zeros will getting along with the floating point 0 dot 0 dot 0 dot. That means you need to mention the data type also. That means what the first element will take you the number of elements. The second element will takes that it is a type, data type. That means you can generate the number of zeros like with the type of integers, float as well. If you won't mention any data type, it will take a floating point value. That's why you will get the output like 0 point something. And if I pass 4 means it will generate 4 zeros array. 4 zeros arrays with a single dimension. And I want to change this default data type floating, because defaultly it will generate the 0 values like a floating point, but I don't want to take that floating. I want to take this array with the integers. In that case, you can mention d type equals to int. Now you will get only array array with zeros in the format of integer. Okay. Before that, if I pass 4 comma 3 means the second element will consider that it is in a data type. Okay, it is in a data type. With respect to these zeros, we can reshape the array with the appropriate manner, like 2-dimension array or 3-dimension array. For that, you need to know how to reshaping the array. Up to now, we are only seen generating the arrays with zeros. So I will tell you reshaping arrays after completing all this. Okay. Okay, like this you can generate the array with the zeros only. And if you want to create an array with strings, you can create it, because every number can be appropriate with like strings also, right? If you want to create a zeros with string, you can use. Okay, you can typecast it like d type is str. Now you will get all the elements like str. That means you will get elements with strings, zeros with strings, but you will not get to observe that zero element here, and you can observe only on the top codes only. Okay, so like this you can generate the data type also. I just want to keep it as integer only. Again, if you want to create an array with ones, you can use a1 as my variable, np dot ones, np dot ones of, you can pass the number of elements here. I'm just passing. I need to create an array with the 5 elements, so I can use 5. And you can, if you don't mention any data type, I'm going to print this a1. If you print a1, it will generate array with the floating point values. That means 1 dot 1 dot 1 dot. And if you want to change it, you can change it by passing d type equals to int. Because defaultly it will generate an array with floating points. Now I have 4 elements like this. I have a totally array with having 5 elements, and I want to convert these 5 elements of 5 elements into some other format. Nothing but here I have a dimension is single dimension. I have only a1 is a single dimension array, but I want to convert this single dimension array into 2 dimension. Can it is possible to convert this 1 dimension to 2 dimension? Is that possible? Yes, we can convert it, right? So if you want to convert these 5 elements of array, 5 elements of single dimension array, you can convert it. So how it is, how you going to be converted? Let's see. I'm just copying this context again. Now I want to reshape. After reshaping, I'm going to use some other variable like a2. a2 equals to a1 dot reshape of, you need to reshape these 5 elements into any other dimension that you want. Okay, so I want to reshape these 5 elements into 2 dimension. Whenever I want to convert this single dimension into 2 dimension, you need to mention 2 dimensions. One dimension belongs to row, another dimension belongs to column. In that case, you need to specify that 2 dimension on which on which integer you want to separate them. So if you want to convert these 5 elements into 2 dimension, what are the possibilities that you have to convert it? These 5 elements should be converted into 2 dimension means you need to know what are the combinations that you have to convert it. Like if I have 1 comma 5, that means totally it's going to be 5 elements. So 5 into 1 means we will getting a chances to reshaping these 5 elements into 2 dimension. Now you can see I'm going to print a2. Let's make it along with statement reshape of a1 into a2. I'm going to print this a2 one. Here I'm just printing a1. Again, we have some other format like A3. A3 equals to A1 dot reshape of, what else we have, 1 comma 5 to reshaping that. Print A3 A1 to A3. You can print A3 here. Now you can see at the initial time we have A1 like this with having some 5 ones, and I want to convert this A1 into 2 dimension. Then I can use A1 dot reshape of 1 comma 5. So that means single row and 5 columns. 5 comma 1. Let's make it as 5 comma 1. Now you can observe here it will generate 5 rows and single column. 5 rows and single column. And you can see again I'm going to reshape that value A1 into 1 comma 5. That means single row and 5 columns. It is similar to A1 again. It is similar to A1. Single row and 5 columns. You can reshape the arrays like this by using reshape method. But when you want to reshape it, you need to pass proper kind of elements. With respect to number of elements only, you need to reshape the array. So we have total in the A1 we have totally 5 elements, right? So with respect to that number of elements only, you need to reshape the array. Otherwise, it will raise an error like invalid length of elements or like that. Can you understand this reshaping the array? Let me know in the chat box, all of you. Let's take some other example. Okay, we will see the reshaping again with arrange method. So let's take some other example, creating array with arrange method. So for that, I'm just taking variable like a to creating array np dot arrange. So if you want to know the description, you just give shift to tab after typing the method. Then you will get a description that can supports. So arrange will take start and stop and data type, stop and step along with data type. Okay, arrange will take start value, stop value, and step value and data type. Defaultly, the data type is none. And what it returns evenly spaced values within the given interval. Okay, it will generate some values within the given interval. And values are generated within the half open interval with respect to start and stop and step value. Okay, now let's see. I'm going to pass the start value as 1, stop value as 10, and the step value as 2. And I'm going to print this a. Now you can see it will generate a single dimension array with the values of in between 1 to 10 with a step value of 2. And here if you see the result, this 10, the stop value is included or excluded? Excluded. It's not going to be included. So that's why we'll get a less value. It is not included. Okay. So now I'm getting, when you use arrange or zeros or ones, it will generate a single dimension array only. So with respect to these elements, if you want to convert this single dimension array into some other dimension, you can reshape it again. So now I'm going to reshape it here. You can see a dot reshape. While reshaping, I'm just assigning with the new variable like a1. So now you can let's make it as simple. Print a, print np dot ndim of a, and print np dot size of a. Then it will generate the dimension and size of elements also. Now you can see the elements is 5. Totally it will generate in a 5 elements, and it is a single dimension array. totally it have 5 elements. Now if you want to reshape this array, so this array having totally 5 elements, if you want to convert these 5 elements into some other format, you need to pass the with respect to the number of elements only. So now I'm going to reshape this array A. So for that I'm just taking A1 is my variable, A dot reshape. So here A is nothing but this A. Okay, we are taking this A to reshape into some other format. I'm just using A dot reshape of. Here you need to specify the number of dimensions you need to pass. That means on which dimension do you need to reshape it. So I just want to reshape these 5 elements in a 2 dimension, because these 5 elements is like a single dimension. So that I need to convert this single dimension of 5 elements into 2 dimension. In that case, you need to specify that 2 dimensions here. So I am just the totally here I have 5 elements. So 5 elements can be reshaping like, so let's make it as 11 here. In the A, I'm going to take 1, 10. Now I'm just taking arrange in the method, I'm just taking 1, 12, 2. Then I will get totally 6 elements. Now I need to reshape these 6 elements single dimension array into 2 dimension. So for that, the 6 can be taken in the 2 dimension like 2, 3. The possibilities for reshaping these 6 elements into 2, 3 are 3 into 2 or 6 into 1 or 1 into 6. These are all the possibilities that we have. Possibilities to reshape of 6 elements is 2 into 3. 2, 3. 2, 3. 2, 3. Or what else we have? Let me know in the chat box. What are the possibilities to reshape these 6 elements? 3 into 2 and 6 into 1 and also 1 into 6. So these are all the possibilities to reshaping these 6 elements of A array. Okay, with respect to these possibilities only, we need to reshaping the array. So if I pass 2, 3 means totally how many elements does it takes? Totally it takes 6 elements. If I pass 3 into 2 means totally it takes 6 elements. Again 6 into 1 means it will support to reshaping of 6 elements. And again 1 into 6 means it is also supporting 6 elements to reshaping. So with respect to these possibilities only, we need to reshaping the array. Now I'm going to print this A1. Now you can see, let's convert this all cells into markdown. Now you can see this A1 is like a 2-dimension array. So A1 is a 2-dimension array. So if you want to print that A also, you can print it. So before reshaping, the A is like single dimension array. After reshaping, it is like a 2-dimension array along with the elements. So here I am passing 2 rows and 3 columns. That's why I'm getting 2 rows and 3 columns. If I need to change with 3 rows and 2 columns means you can change it. Then you can observe totally 3 rows and 2 columns. Okay, totally you will get 3 rows and 2 columns. So if I pass 3, 6, if I pass 3, 6, when you pass 3, 6 means totally how many elements does it takes to reshape? If I pass 3, 6 while reshaping, how many elements does it takes to reshape? 18. But we have in the A array we have only 6 elements, right? Okay, if I pass 3, 6 means totally it will take 18 elements to reshape, but that's why it will raises an error. So what is the error? You can observe that error is value error. That you can observe the error represents cannot reshape of array with size 6 into 3, 6. So size 6 means it have only 6 elements, and if we want to convert these 6 elements into 3 comma 6 means it is not possible. 6 into 3 means totally it takes 18 elements. So with respect to that size of elements only, you need to reshape the array. Okay, I think everyone is clear to reshaping the array. Am I clear, guys, to reshaping the array? Because it is very important, because we are getting the data from some other resource and that is in not correct format, and you need to reshape that array with appropriate format. In that case, you need to know how to reshaping your array. Am I clear, guys, up to this? What about rest of them? Okay, good. Now let's see creating array with some other methods like log space and linspace. So for that, I'm just taking one variable like yes, L1. L1 is my variable here to create an array with log space. I'm just using the method like log space. And this log space will take you the start value and stop value. You can observe. So the log space will take you the arguments is start value and stop value and number value, and data type is defaultly none. There is a base and endpoint access. All these are the attributes that can take by log space. And basically we will pass a start value and stop value, and also third element, that is num also. So let's see how it is happen. So initially I'm going to pass 1 and 5. If I pass 1 comma 5, and after passing it, if I print L1, you can observe it will generate array with 50 elements. You can observe it will generate an array with 50 elements inside it with some kind of logarithmic values, exponential values. That means it will generate a log value for 1, 10 to the power of 1, and log with base of up to 5. So it will generate the values, logarithmic values from 1 to 5 with the elements of 50. That means it will convert, it will generate a value of log space values from 1 to 5 with the partitions of 50. It will divide the number from 1 to, it will divide the numbers from 1 to 50 with the partition of 50 times, because defaultly the number should be 50. So if you don't want to convert, if you don't want to partition this number with 1 to 50 times, you can use the number of partitions that you want. If I pass 3 means it will generate the logarithmic values with the partitions of 1 to 5 with 3 times only. Now you can see it will generate the number of values based on this number. Defaultly the number should be 50. We're already seen that, right? So based on that number only, it will partition the array with the respective of start and stop value. Whatever you pass with respect to that start and stop value, it will partition the array based on this number value. Defaultly that number value is 50. That's why it will generate 50 elements with logarithmic values. Okay, like this you can generate an array with log space. Now let's see linspace also. Np dot so it is not a stop value. 3 is not a stop value. You can observe here the syntax. The syntax here it is start and stop and number. 3 is number. Number means based on the number it going to be divide the number from 1 to 1 start to stop value. It will generate the number of partitions based on the start and stop value. So the number of partitions is based on number. Defaultly this number is 50. So that's why if I won't pass 3 previously, it will generate the partitions of numbers of start and stop value, that is 1 to 5 values, up to 50 times. It will generate the 50 elements. That means it will partition the numbers from 1 to 5 with 50 times. That's why we'll get 50 elements. Basically, that number is defaultly 50. So that's why I'm getting 3. If I pass 3 means it will partition the data of 1 to 5 with 3 elements only. If you pass 1, you will get only one number. That means the 1 to 5 number, if you want to generate the array with 1 to 5 number with logarithmic log value, means it will generate one value, because the partition here I'm using only 1. That means I need to divide the number. I need to partition the number 1 to 5, means it will generate only 1, that is 10. If you want to get that signature window after typing the method, you just pass shift to tab from your keyboard. Shift to tab from your keyboard, then it will generate your signature window. How it is generating means you just go through this documentation. You just go through this once, then you will get more clarity. It is a logarithmic value because the method is log space. It will generate a log space. That means it will generate a log value for 1 and 2 and 3 up to 5. Up to 5 it will generate the logarithmic values, and based on the partitions it will generate the number. The logarithmic value of 1 is what? I don't know exactly. But it will automatically generate the logarithmic value based on the partition number that we have passed. If you want to get more, you just go through this documentation here itself. In the bottom, that will generate some kind of examples also. You can see here. Here, if you see what it returns numbers spaced evenly on a log scale. Number of samples to generate. How many samples do you generate? That is based on number only. So if I pass 1 means it will generate only one sample. Like that, it will generate the log space values. So after typing the method like np.log space, otherwise if I pass np, you just type np and then type dot from your keyboard and type first 3 like lin log space, right? Log and give tab from your keyboard, give tab, and it will display the respected methods that can start from log name. And out of this you can pick one method that you can use. I just want to use log space, so I can use log space, and it will automatically select it, and it will generate the data like this. And if you want to know the documentation or description about this, after typing the method, after selecting your entire method, just give shift to tab. Give shift tab, place the cursor after the method and give shift tab, then it will generate the description that can support, and there you can observe the attributes and what it returns, the signature or syntax, all those things, and at the bottom also you can observe some kind of examples. Okay, like that you can use it. Now let's see linspace np dot, I'm just give lin. So L2 equals to np dot linspace. I'm just typing lin and give tab from my keyboard. Then it will raises and methods with lin starting. Now I can pick up linspace, and if you can see the documentation, it is also take start and stop value and number and endpoint. So in the log space, it will generate the number of arrays with based on space values, log space values. And if you want to generate the array with the only numbers, you can use linspace. And it is also taken start and stop and number of partitions, number of spaces that you want to generate. The third parameter here I'm using 3. Now if I print L2, you can get an array with number of evenly generated spaces. It is acts like a step value also, but mostly it is not like a step value. It is kind of spaces, how many elements that you want to generate in between the start and stop values. If I pass 3 means it will generate 3 values in between 1 to 5. Okay, if I pass, so if I don't pass anything, it will generate defaultly 50 values in between with the help of start and stop value. So here if you see, the start value is 1, and with respect to 1 to in between 1 to 5 only, it will generate 50 elements. It will generate 50 elements because the default number of partitions, number of spaces that it takes is 50. I don't want to generate 50 elements. I just want to generate only 3 or 4. In that case, you can mention that number of spaces that you want to separate. Okay, I'm just gives 5. That means it will generate 5 elements by separating the data in between from 1 to 5. You can see it will generate an element. If I pass 6, it will generate 6 elements in between from 1 to 5. Okay, am I clear, students, up to this? Let me know in the chat box. Okay, next we have one more method that is very most important, that is random. Creating a random numbers by using numpy array. So for that you need to, let's take one variable r equals to np dot random dot rand. So to generating a random numbers, you can use a method that is random. Inside this random, we have again one method like rand. So and this rand will takes the attributes like d0 comma d1 and up to dn, and it will generate the random values in a given shape. And it will generate a random values in a given shape. And you can observe a kind of description. And here if you see, create an array of the given shape and populate it with the random samples from uniform distribution 0 to 1. That means it will generate an array of random numbers in between zeros and 1 only. It will generate an array elements in between zeros and 1 only. And defaultly it is in the generates an array with integer data type. And at the bottom you can also see some kind of examples. Okay, now let's see. If I pass, I need to generate a 3 by 2 array, and if I print, or now you can see it will generate in a 3 rows and 2 columns array because I'm mentioning that save. And you can observe the values can be generated randomly because we are using random module to generate random values, and this value should not be same to you because we are using random modules. And you can see the result should be here, the unique quality is the number should be in between 0 to 1 range only. The number should be in between the range of 0 to 1 only. Okay, that is the main aspect here. Sometimes we need to generate our own data. In that case, we, instead of typing every data, we can use random module. Okay, instead of typing every data, you can use random module so that we can generate a random data up to the number of up to the respected number of shape, and out of that data we can reshape or we can do any kind of application. If you want to int type, you can use d type. Basically it will generate floating point, right? Let's see, d type equals to int. Rand got unexpected argument d type. Let's see syntax once. Yeah, it will generate only in between 0 to 1, right? That's why it is not generating integer data. I think so. Colon int, the dimension of the returned array must be non-negative. If no argument is given, single Python float is returned. Okay. Why we are getting only floating point means rand will generate only floating point values in between 0 to 1. It will generate non-negative values only. Yeah, for generating only integers, we can use rand int. Up to now, I'm not telling you that. Okay. So with this help of, we can generate only values between 0 to 1. If you want to generate only random integers, you can use some other method. I'm just using R1. np dot random dot rand int. So rand int method will generate a random integers. So if I pass 1 to 10, it will generate a one random integer number. It will generate a one random integer number in between 1 to 10. Okay. By using rand int, it will generate random numbers, random integers only. Okay. So here in the rand, it will generate the floating point values in between 0 to 1. And by using rand int, you will generate one random integer only. So in between the given range. So if I pass 1 to 10, it will generate one random integer, that is 8. And this value should not be same to you. If you pass same range also, you will not get the same value because it is a random module. And if I pass some other like some 100, it will generate a random integer in between the 1 to 100 number. And now we have some other method like randn also. Let's see. np dot random dot randn. So this also takes d0, d1 up to dn and returns a sample from the standard normal distribution. In the rand, it will take uniform distribution, and in the rand n, it will generate values with the help of standard normal distribution. Let's see the difference. If I pass 1 to 10, I forgot to print it. Okay. So if I pass 1 to 10, here also it will generate the values in between the values from 1 to -1 to +1 or -0 to +1 only. Here it will generate only positive values along with the floating point. By using rand, it will generate a floating point in between 0 to 1 only. And if you use rand n, it will generate negative value also. In between 0 to, it will generate the values -0 to -1 or 1 to -1. So there it will generate in the rand, it will generate the values like uniform distribution. In the rand n, it will generate the values like standard normal distribution. So if you want to know more about this, just go through this syntax or signature tab, then you will get more explanation. The dimension of the returned array must be non-negative. Okay. Okay. Now I have a R2 array like this, and this array shape is, let's find out the shape. np dot ndim of R2. The shape is two-dimension array, and it is having 2 rows and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 columns. And now, if I want to convert this to any dimension array into single dimension, you can use one method like flatten. So flatten. So for that, I'm using one variable. Let's try it like np dot flatten. Yeah. R2 dot. So array dot flatten. So when you use array.flatten, out of the dimension of that array, it will convert that entire array into single dimension. It will convert that array into flatten. Let's make it as R3 equal to, if I print R3, np dot name of R3. Now you can see that previously R2 is like two-dimension array. Previously R2 is like two-dimension array, and I'm going to convert this two-dimension into single dimension. For that, I can, instead of using reshaping, I'm just using flatten. So this flatten method will convert any multi-dimension into single dimension. So after flatten, I'm just storing that result into R3 variable, and after that, if I find out dimension of that R3, it will gives me like 1. That means that entire multi-dimension array or two-dimension array should be flattened. That's why I'm getting one dimension as my result when I find out dimension of that R3. Like this, you can convert any dimension or array into single dimension. Can we get 5 or 6 random numbers between 1 to 100? Yeah, if you want to get a random 5 or 6 random numbers between 1 to 100, you can use range, right? Range method. You can repeat the loop so that you will get number of elements that you want. If you want to get 5 random numbers, you need to write a loop, or you can use arrange method so that it will also generate a range of elements. Yeah, like this you can use all the elements. And what else we have? We need to know how to reshaping, or we need to know how to accessing the elements, but time is already 6:30. Okay, let's see. Is there any accessing elements in arrays? Accessing elements in arrays. So for accessing of elements, we have totally following, like first method is like indexing. We already know about this indexing. Second one is slicing, and third one is loop. So indexing, we already know indexing is like positive index and negative index. And slicing is nothing but we already know. In the slicing, we have start value, colon, stop value, colon, step value. And for iterating loopings, we can use for loop or while loop. Okay, we already know accessing of any data in any programming. So if you take Python programming, we have these 3 type of formats to accessing elements. So if it is string or it's up to accessing elements is nothing but it's up to iterators only. String can be iterate, list can be iterate, tuple can be iterate. Likewise, NumPy also can be iterate. So that only we can access the elements. Integers cannot be iterates, right? So for iterators, we can use these 3 type of methods to accessing elements, like indexing, slicing, and looping. Okay, so we will discuss about accessing of elements in the next class. And if you have any doubts up to now, you can ask me by unmuting your mic. So today we are discussing data science life cycle. In the data science life cycle, we have totally 6 steps. The first step is business understanding. Second step is data preparation. Third step is data modeling or data wrangling. And fourth step is model training, and fifth is model evaluation, and next one is model deployment and model tracking. So these are all the steps that are going to be involved in data science life cycle. And for data science or ML or AI, we need to know some kind of basic libraries that can helpful to do data analysis. Those libraries or data analysis libraries are NumPy, Pandas, Matplotlib, Seaborn, and SciPy. So out of these libraries, we are going to see the NumPy. So the NumPy is kind of numerical Python, and which is more 50 times faster than Lisp, and it is developed by 2005 by Travis Wolfan. And with this help of NumPy, we can create n dimension arrays. So for that, we need to import NumPy with the help of pip if it is not there. If it is already there, we can directly import it and we can use it. To creating arrays, we can use a method like array with the help of NumPy. So that is like np. So np.array, and you can use any kind of dimension that you want to create. So for if you pass single in like a parenthesis in a single element, means it is a 0 dimension. And if you want to create a single dimension, means you can pass single bracket. If you want to create a 2 dimension, means you can pass single dimension. Inside the single dimension, we have again single dimension. Okay, likewise you can create a 2 dimension. And when it comes to 3 dimension, you can use single dimension. Inside the single dimension, again you have a two dimensions, so that you can create a 3 dimension. And out of this any kind of dimension, if you want to access the number of elements, you can use size as a method, numpy.size. And if you want to get the number of rows and columns, you can use shape, numpy.shape. And if you want to know the number of dimension that array having, you can use dimension, ndim. That then you will get all the respected results. And we will see how to create a arrays with other some methods like zeros, ones, linspace, log space, arrange, and also random. We're already seen random also, right? Let's make it here, random dot rand. Okay, with this we will create an arrays, and we are going to reshaping that arrays also. When you use arrays and zeros and arrange, it will generate a single dimension array. And if you want to convert that any kind of single dimension into some other dimension, you can use reshape method. And this reshape will follows the number of elements only. If you don't pass number of elements supporting, it will raises an a value error. And after that, we are seeing some kind of random. And if you want to convert any kind of multi-dimension into single dimension, instead of reshaping, you can use flatten. So flatten is a method, so that any other multi-dimension can be converted into a single dimension, like this. Okay, that is the today's concepts we have covered. Thank you one and all. If you have any doubts, you can stay back in the meeting and you can ask me so that I will clarify our doubts. Thank you one and all.